Listen, there's something wild that happens when you start waking up to who you really are. And it's this crazy thing where you realize you're changing, but everyone around you is staying exactly the same. It creates this bizarre situation that's hard to explain to anyone who hasn't been through it. Imagine being a caterpillar that suddenly starts turning into a butterfly, except you're still stuck in a field full of caterpillars who are totally fine just being caterpillars forever. They don't want to change. They don't see any reason to change, and honestly, they think you're losing your mind for wanting something different. I'm bringing this up because nearly everyone who starts this journey of waking up is going to hit this wall. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's one of the loneliest, most confusing, and yes, most risky things you'll ever face. When I say risky, I don't just mean physically, though throughout history plenty of people have been hurt for thinking differently. What I mean is that you might lose everything that once made you feel like you belonged somewhere, everything that told you who you were, everything that made you feel safe in this world. Let me start with something real simple. Growing hurts. It's always hurt, and it's always going to hurt. Think about a lobster for a second. When it gets too big for its shell, it has to crack that shell open and wiggle out of it, leaving itself completely soft and exposed until a new shell grows in. During that time when it's vulnerable, every single predator in the ocean would love nothing more than to eat it alive. But here's the thing. If that lobster is too scared to shed its shell, if it holds on to the safety of what it knows, it'll never grow. It'll stay cramped and limited and stuck, never becoming what it could be. We're just like that lobster. We outgrow our old ways of thinking, our relationships, our entire way of seeing the world. And when we do, we become exposed. We lose the protection that comes from being part of the crowd, the comfort of just going along with everyone else, the security of fitting in perfectly. This exposure, this nakedness, is what makes it dangerous. So what does it actually mean when you outgrow the people around you? First off, it doesn't mean you're better than them. That's a massive trap that tons of people fall into, and it's proof they haven't really grown at all. They've just swapped one kind of ego trip for another one. No. Outgrowing people means you're starting to see things they can't see yet. You're asking questions they haven't thought to ask. You've stepped outside the box of reality that everyone agrees on, while they're still inside it, comfortable and cozy. Maybe you've started questioning all the stuff that everyone thinks matters. Making money, getting status, feeling secure, buying more and more stuff, filling every spare moment with distractions and entertainment. Maybe you're seeing that none of this actually makes anyone happy, that it's all empty promises, that it's covering up something deeper, some fundamental confusion about what life is and who we really are. Or maybe something has happened to you, through sitting quietly, through deep thinking, through a crisis, through plant medicines, through some spontaneous opening. You've seen that reality is way more strange, way more flexible, way more connected to consciousness than the solid, objective, external world everyone believes in. You've seen through the illusion that you're a separate individual, or at least you've gotten a peek behind the curtain, and now you can't unsee what you saw. When this shift happens, you find yourself in the weirdest position. You're living in two completely different worlds at the same time. There's the normal world, the world of jobs and politics and daily routines, the world where everyone is playing their parts and taking everything super seriously. And then there's this other dimension, this deeper reality that's always been there, but most people are completely blind to it. You have to learn how to move between both worlds. You have to learn to speak two totally different languages, the language of everyday life and the language of deeper truth. You have to figure out how to be in the world without being consumed by it, as the old wisdom says. And this is incredibly hard because these two worlds operate by different rules, value different things, and make sense of life in totally opposite ways. The people in your life, your family, your friends, your co-workers, they're still completely inside the normal framework. They're worried about their careers, their house payments, what people think of them, their plans for next year. And these worries, which used to feel so important to you, now feel kind of silly, kind of beside the point. Not because you've stopped caring about people or become cold, but because you've realized there are deeper questions, more important things going on beneath the surface. But you can't just tell them this straight out. You can't sit down at dinner with your family and announce that you've realized the self is just a story and that we're all part of one big consciousness. They'll think you've completely lost it. And in a way you have. You've lost the normal mind, the socially programmed mind. And you haven't quite figured out how to explain what you found instead. So you keep quiet, or you drop little hints, or you desperately search for people who get what you're going through. This is where the loneliness starts creeping in, because the people you've known your whole life, the people you love deeply, increasingly feel like they're living on a different planet than you. You're speaking different languages, chasing different things, seeing reality through completely different lenses. They can sense this shift even if they can't put it into words. They sense you're not quite one of them anymore, that something fundamental has changed in you, that you're not playing the game with the same energy you used to have. And this freaks them out. It threatens them, because if you can step outside the agreed-upon game, then maybe the game isn't as real as they thought. Maybe their own lives are built on sand. They'll react in different ways. Some will try to drag you back, to make you normal again, to get you to be who you used to be. They'll tell you you've changed, and they won't mean it as a compliment. They'll call you weird, impractical, irresponsible, self-centered. They'll remind you of your duties, your responsibilities, your place in the social structure. They'll do everything possible to squeeze you back into the box you've grown out of. Others will just pull away from you. They'll find you boring or preachy or impossible to understand. The conversations that used to flow naturally now feel awkward and shallow. You have less and less in common. The friendship or relationship slowly fades away, not through any big dramatic fight, but through a slow, painful drifting apart. Then there are those who become hostile. This happens especially if you've moved beyond a religious or political belief system they're still attached to. If you grew up in a certain faith, and you've moved past it. If you've questioned the rules and found them lacking, your very existence becomes a threat to people who still believe. You're a traitor, someone who's lost their way, someone who needs to be saved or avoided. This is the risk I'm talking about. Not that you'll necessarily get physically hurt, though that can happen, but that you'll lose your community, your tribe, your feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself. Humans are social creatures. We desperately need connection. We need to feel like we're part of a group, like we're understood and accepted. And when you outgrow the people around you, you're putting all of that at risk. Now, you might be thinking, why not just keep your mouth shut about it? Why not maintain the appearance, play along, keep your realizations to yourself? And plenty of people do exactly that. They live split lives. They keep up the normal appearance while privately knowing it's all just a game, all just a performance. And there's some wisdom in this approach. Like I said before, you don't violently shake someone awake from a nice dream unless the house is literally burning down. But this strategy has serious problems too. First, it's exhausting. Living a double life, constantly watching what you say, editing your thoughts, pretending to care about things that don't matter to you anymore. This drains you completely. You become disconnected from yourself, divided, broken into pieces. The very wholeness and integration you've been looking for through your spiritual journey becomes impossible because you're constantly betraying your own truth. Second, it's fake. And being real, being true to what you've discovered is essential on this path. If you've seen something true, something real, and you hide it, deny it, refuse to live according to it, then what was the point of seeing it? You're like someone who found a treasure chest but is too scared to use it, so they bury it and keep living in poverty. Third, and maybe most important, your presence alone, even if you never say a word, communicates something. People pick up on energy, on vibes, on the unspoken stuff. If you've genuinely transformed, if you've genuinely outgrown the normal framework, it'll show in 1,000 tiny ways. In the quality of your attention, in how you respond to crisis and hardship, in what makes you laugh and what you take seriously, in how you move through life. So you're stuck with a problem. You can't go backward. You can't unsee what you've seen, unknow what you've learned. But you can't really move forward either, at least not without paying a price, without losing things, without going through a period of deep loneliness and confusion. This is what the mystics have always called the dark night of the soul. It's the passage between your old life and your new one, the death of the caterpillar before the butterfly can emerge. And it's dark precisely because you've abandoned the familiar landmarks, the comfortable certainties, but you haven't arrived at the new place yet. You're in between, in limbo, wandering in the wilderness. During this time, you might feel totally alone. You might wonder if you've made a horrible mistake, if you've thrown away everything good for some vague spiritual fantasy. You might long for the days when life was simpler, when you fit in, when you didn't question everything, when you could just go with the flow like everyone else. But here's what you absolutely must understand. This loneliness, this isolation, isn't a sign you've screwed up. It's a sign you're doing it right. It's an unavoidable stage in the transformation process. Every hero in every story has to leave home, has to go into the unknown, has to face monsters alone before they can come back with the prize. The prize here is your real self, your true nature, freed from all the conditioning and programming society put into you. But you can't claim this prize while still desperately clinging to the approval and acceptance of people who represent that very conditioning. You have to be willing to star, end alone, to be misunderstood, to be criticized, to be rejected. Now let me be crystal clear about something. This doesn't mean you should deliberately alienate people, or act superior, or reject everyone who doesn't match your level of understanding. That's just spiritual ego, and it's another trap, another form of separation. What it means is that you accept the consequences of your growth with grace and kindness. You understand that people are where they are, and they're doing their best with whatever level of awareness they have. You don't judge them or look down on them. You simply recognize you're on different paths, at least right now. And you trust that if you're meant to have community, if you're meant to have companions on this journey, they'll show up. Because here's the beautiful thing. When you outgrow one level, when you shed one shell, you don't stay alone forever. You find other people who have also outgrown that level. You discover a new community, a new tribe, a new set of companions who speak your language, who understand your experience, who are wrestling with the same questions. This is why spiritual seekers throughout history have formed communities, monasteries, retreat centers, mystery schools, philosophical groups. Not because they're snobbish or exclusive, but because they needed to be around others who understood what they were experiencing, who could support them through the hard transitions, who could remind them they weren't insane, that the path was real, that the struggle was worth it. But these communities are often hidden, or at least not obvious. They don't put up billboards, they don't recruit. You find them when you're ready, when your seeking becomes sincere enough, when your loneliness becomes sharp enough. And often you find them in surprising places. A random conversation with a stranger, a book that appears at exactly the right moment, a teacher who shows up just when you need them. The secret is not to desperately cling to old relationships out of fear of being alone, but also not to cut ties too quickly out of spiritual pride. There's a middle path, as there always is. You keep whatever connections you can keep honestly. You honor your history, your roots, the people who loved you before you changed. But you don't betray yourself to keep those connections alive. You don't make yourself smaller to make others comfortable. And sometimes, amazingly, the people around you grow too. Sometimes your own transformation sparks their awakening. They see something in you, a calmness, a clarity, a freedom, and they want it too. They start asking questions. They start opening up. And then the relationship transforms right along with you, deepens, becomes more real, more honest, more alive. But you can't force this to happen. You can't make people grow. All you can do is be yourself, be authentic, be the living embodiment of what you've discovered, and trust that people who are ready will recognize it. The rest will fall away, and you have to let them go with love and gratitude for what they gave you, for the part they played. in your story, even if that part has ended now. The danger of outgrowing everyone around you is absolutely real. You might lose friends, family members, communities that once defined who you were. You might go through stretches of crushing loneliness. You might question if it was worth it. But I can tell you from my own journey and from watching countless others walk this path, that on the other side of this danger is a freedom, an authenticity, a depth of being that makes every loss worthwhile. Because what you gain is yourself, your real self, not the self that was built to fit in, to please others, to meet expectations. And once you've found that, once you've tasted that freedom, you realize you never really lost anything real. You only lost illusions, masks, false identities. The real connections, the real love, the real community, these either remain or they appear fresh and new, deeper and truer than before. So if you're finding yourself outgrowing the people around you, know you're not alone. Even in your aloneness, know this is part of the process, part of the path. Know it's temporary, this loneliness, this feeling of being between worlds. And know that the courage it takes to keep growing, to keep being true to what you've seen, even when it costs you everything familiar, this courage is the mark of a real spiritual warrior, a genuine truth seeker. The caterpillar has to die for the butterfly to be born. There's no way around that hard fact, but what emerges is so much more beautiful, so much more free, so much more alive than what was lost. Trust the process, trust your growth, and trust that life, in its infinite wisdom, is guiding you exactly where you need to be, even when the path leads straight through darkness and uncertainty, even when you can't see what's coming next, even when every part of you wants to turn back and return to the safety of what you knew before.